Let me tell you something about the Amish that nobody in a $200 gardening apron wants you to know. They don't have a loyalty card at Home Depot. They never bought a bottle of Bayer Garden Defense Concentrate. They wouldn't know a premium fungicide from a bottle of cologne. And frankly, from the smell of most fungicides, neither would I. What they had was a half-empty jug of milk, and 200 years of watching things die without it. Here's the scene. Your zucchini was perfect 3 weeks ago. You were practically hiding it from the neighbors to avoid giving any away. Now it looks like someone draped wet tissue paper over the leaves, that white powdery coating that spreads slow, then all at once, until the whole plant looks like it gave up on itself. Powdery mildew, the kind that laughs at your copper spray, the kind that your garden center has 17 products for, each one more expensive than the last, none of them quite working the way the label implies. You bought the spray. You used it twice. You're still standing here watching the plant lose. Now picture an Amish farmer in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, sometime around 1840. His squash has the same problem. He doesn't drive to a store. He walks to the barn, fills a bucket with the leftover whey from his wife's cheesemaking, and dilutes it about half and half with water. He sprays the leaves. The mildew retreats. He doesn't publish a study about it. He tells his sons tell their sons. In 2006, a plant pathologist named Dr. Wagner Bettiol at the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embrapa if you want to look him up, ran a controlled field trial on zucchini. He tested a 10% milk solution against standard synthetic fungicides for powdery mildew control. Milk won, or tied, depending on which week of the trial you were reading. His conclusion, published in the journal Crop Protection, was that milk was a legitimate alternative to conventional fungicide for this specific disease. Not folklore, not anecdote. Peer-reviewed. 200 years of Amish barn knowledge and one Brazilian scientist walked into the same answer from opposite directions. Stay with me, because there's more going on inside that milk than just the fungus story. Here's where it gets interesting, and where most people who've tried milk on plants and seen mixed results usually went wrong. Milk is not one thing. It is a biological cocktail. You have casein protein. You have lactoferrin, which is an antimicrobial compound the cow produces to protect her own milk supply from bacteria. You have calcium, phosphorus, potassium, and a small but real amount of nitrogen. You have naturally occurring sugars that feed soil microbes when the milk hits the ground. And in raw or unpasteurized milk, the kind the Amish were actually using, you have live lactobacillus bacteria, the same organisms you find in good compost and healthy soil. Every single one of those things does something useful in your garden. The question is whether you're delivering them in a way the plant can use, or in a way that just makes your garden smell like a diner at closing time. The fungal fight works like this. When you dilute milk 40 to 50% with water and apply it as a foliar spray, the casein proteins coat the fungal spores sitting on the leaf surface. Casein is sticky. It's the same protein that makes cheese hold together. It physically smothers spore germination before the mildew can put down new growth. Meanwhile, the lactoferrin compounds interfere with the iron uptake that fungal cells need to reproduce. 2 mechanisms, 1 jug. But here's what Dr. Bettiol also noted, and what the YouTube summaries of his work almost universally leave out. The milk only performs at this level when applied in sunlight. Ultraviolet light activates an oxidative reaction on the leaf surface that amplifies the antifungal effect. Applied on a cloudy day or in the evening, the results dropped significantly. The Amish, working outdoors by necessity, sprayed in the morning sun without knowing exactly why it worked better that way. They just knew it did. Apply in the morning, full sun, diluted to 40 to 50% with water. Spray the tops and undersides of the leaves, the undersides especially because that's where mildew spores overwinter and where new infections start. If you spray it straight, undiluted, or anywhere near full strength, the milk solids will ferment on the leaf surface within 24 hours in warm weather. People who say, "I tried milk and it was a disaster," almost always use too much. Now step away from the mildew for a minute, because there is a second thing happening when you milk your garden, and this one is less about the leaves and more about what's going on underground. Calcium is what holds plant cell walls rigid. Not just structurally, calcium is the compound that regulates how cells absorb water under pressure. When a tomato or pepper is developing fruit rapidly during a July heat stretch, it's pulling water up through the root system at a rate the plant can barely manage. If calcium is insufficient anywhere in that chain, The cells at the blossom end of the fruit, the furthest point from the water supply, essentially collapse inward. The tissue dies. You get that black sunken bottom on your tomatoes that looks like a fungal rot but isn't. Blossom end rot is a calcium delivery problem. Not always a calcium deficiency. Often the calcium is in the soil, but fast irregular watering creates uptake failures. The plant needs a slow, steady calcium supply going into fruit set. This is where the Amish practice of pouring diluted milk directly into the root zone, not just spraying the leaves, makes a different kind of sense. A half gallon of whole milk diluted in a gallon of water, poured at the base of each tomato plant every 2 to 3 weeks during the growing season, gives the roots a bioavailable calcium source. The proteins break down quickly in warm soil, releasing calcium gradually, rather than in a hard chemical spike the way lime does. A woman in a gardening forum, retired, grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, wrote something I've thought about since. We poured skimmed milk on the tomatoes every time my mother had extra. I never knew blossom end rot until I moved to the city and bought bottled spray calcium. That's not science, but it's 50 years of consistent personal data, and I'll take it seriously. The ratio for soil application, 1 part whole milk to 2 parts water, not skim. The fat content is irrelevant here, but whole milk has higher protein and calcium density per ounce. Once every 2 to 3 weeks on tomatoes, peppers, and squash. Start at transplanting and run it through midsummer. There is a version of this that goes wrong, and I want to name it before you do it. Do not use milk in hot, stagnant conditions without airflow. If your plants are crowded, leaves touching, poor circulation between rows, the milk residue on the soil surface will start to smell bad within 2 or 3 days in temperatures above 85 degrees. It doesn't harm the plants, but it will bring every fungus gnat in a 3-yard radius to your bed, and you will have traded one problem for a worse one. Space your plants properly. If they're already crowded, apply the milk in the early morning and water it in gently so it moves into the soil quickly rather than sitting on the surface. Also, fresh milk only. Sour milk that's already turned is fine for soil drench. The Amish used whey and sour milk routinely. But do not spray soured milk on leaves. The altered protein structure doesn't coat fungal spores the same way, and the smell on warm foliage is genuinely something you don't recover from quickly. So, a 200-year-old Amish practice, a Brazilian field trial, a retired dairy farmer in Wisconsin who never lost a tomato to blossom end rot her entire life. The same answer, different roads. You've got the ratios now. 40 to 50% dilution for foliar spray, morning application, full sun. 1 part milk to 2 parts water for soil drench, every 2 to 3 weeks. Whole milk, not skim. Next time we're going somewhere even older. Because if milk does this for your plants, wait until you hear what the Japanese have been doing with fermented rice water for 3 centuries. And what the research from Kyoto University's agricultural department finally confirmed about it in 2019. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever accidentally tried something on your garden that you didn't expect to work? I want to hear those stories, the weird ones especially.